Hello, hello, hello. Listen, enjoy your life. Welcome to this special edition of Mental Health Matters with Marty. Listen, I'm so glad that you are going to be joining us tonight. Listen, I am so excited about this panel that we have of these millennials. If you joined me 2 weeks ago, we had a discussion, part one, with these millennials that were talking about the whole process of Black Lives Matter and their vision with it and how they can become a part of it. So listen, let me know that you are here. I'm going to tell you in advance, like and share this, get on the phone, get forward this to all your streaming platforms. We are on Mental Health Matters with Marty. We're on Marcel Consulting, my own personal Facebook, Martina Sellers. We're on what else? We're on YouTube on Martina Sellers. We are going to have a great time. Listen, I'm glad you caught the beginning of this as well. Listen, I'm here to tell you, get everyone out there because I got so many surprises for you tonight with millennials who are doing the work, who are speaking up, who are speaking out, and they are living the dream so that others might be living in that as well. Of course, my mama is watching. Hello, mama. Glad you're out there. And my auntie, hey, hello. Hey, listen, yes. Glad you're able to catch the beginning of that as well. So listen, without any further ado, I want to bring up here with me tonight my co-host, who is always the motivator himself, all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina. Come on, let's give a Marcel Mental Health Matters with Marty. Welcome to Jason Mahoney. What's up, Jason?
What's going on, Marty? How you doing in Cali?
Hey, we're doing all right out here. We are just taking it one day at a time. Listen, talk to us about who you are once again, what you do out there in Raleigh, and man, thank you so much for joining and being a co-host with me tonight.
Anytime. Real quick, Jason Mahoney. I live here, Jason T. Mahoney. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. Motivational speaker, author, poet, motivational coach, and just really here to serve people and help people get to the mountaintop so we can all be at the mountaintop together with motivation, because motivation is what's going to push us. You can reach me on jtmahoney.com. But, you know, I'm ready to get these millennials out so we can really talk with the millennials.
I'm with you.
I'm excited.
We'll do our stuff later. So coming back to us from part one, these ladies blew up so much. They dropped so much knowledge, like bam, till people were just like, who are they? I'm so glad to have them back on here with me. So from UCLA and UC Riverside, none other than Keira and Ashley. Hey, ladies.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Okay.
All things considered, I'm great.
All things considered, you're great. Both of you had such compelling things that we talked about last time. And Keira, you were calling out judges. You were telling us to get out there and vote.
Yay.
You were making us hold people accountable. Your mama says, woohoo! You know, yes, you know, mama's got to show her love and all that. But and then Ashley, you also reminded us the importance that most times we don't talk about various immigrants or other people who've come in here who are Black to our country, and how you are the voice for your parents. And what voting means to you. And that was so compelling to the heart. So, hey, thank you guys for coming back for part two of this. I'm so excited. Without any further, I want to bring these next millennials on as well, because I'm just going to bring the whole gamma out here and everything. So next we want to welcome to us. This is his first time with us. And man, this young man, who has this amazing young face, who's going to be doing some great things with us, Mr. Deji himself. Deji, come on out here. Deji, man, how are you?
How's it going, Marty? I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Hey, glad to be here. Glad that you're on here with us. Deji is a graduate from Azusa Pacific. Yes, he has his BA, y'all, and he's doing great things in ministry and also doing great things in the whole healthcare as well. Deji, tell us about you, man. Who are you? And I want to get back to the girls too and have you do the same thing.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Marty. Such a pleasure to be on here with so many talented people. A little bit about me. I'm from Corona, California, here in SoCal. Recently graduated from Azusa Pacific University, where I got my master's degree, my master's of divinity degree, and currently working in healthcare as well right now, helping manage a chiropractic office and definitely interested in this conversation to share my voice, share my perspective.
Yes, forgive me. I only gave you your BA, but Deji has his master's in theology. So I'm sorry, my bad. Listen, when you get in your master's, listen, that already puts you in the top 10% as Black men getting their master's in that, and to go to such a prestigious university. Man, salute, hats off to you. Thank you for leading the way in this time and everything. Keira, and yes, definitely UCLA poli-sci major, right? Anything else I need to add to your wonderful dossier?
I'm pursuing a public affairs minor as well, and I'm really excited to be on the pre-law path. So
wonderful. Our future attorney, yes. Miss Ashley, anything else we want to add to you?
I'm also a political science major. I'm looking into public policy, more quantitative analysis.
See, that whole quantitative analysis, I can't even deal with all that. That's so beyond my pay grade. It's ridiculous. It is. I believe in hiring people to do that kind of stuff. Listen,
right.
As a CEO, I learned to hire people who are smarter than me to get the job done. Yes. Listen, in this whole thing of Black Lives Matter and this whole movement, I'm so excited because this does not just embody me and us as Black people and as a culture and generation. So I'm so glad. I was in a march last weekend with none other than Marilyn Daniel. I'm so proud of her, what she's doing in Anaheim and everything, and how she's in a predominantly has been viewed as a Republican county, Orange County in Southern California. She's out there doing the work and grabbing people and getting, we had more allies of Black Lives Matter than we actually did Black people there. And that's becoming the story across the nation. And these young people blew me out the water on last Saturday. Wow. So I am so excited to have these amazing young millennial allies out there. And this will not be the first time you will be seeing them, because they're part of this Mental Health Matters with Marty network now. And I'm so proud of them. I want to grow up and be like them and everything. So I have this wonderful trio. We have Miss Hallie, Mr. Tim Tom. Y'all, if you don't know who he is, just go look at him in YouTube and everything. With that, you're going to be blown away with that. And Miss also Quinlan. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me on tonight.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your stories, Miss Hallie. Miss Hallie, listen, at the rally, she came and dropped such bomb facts, and we're going to address that a little bit later about the talk to me about that.
Can't wait. I talked about a little bit.
That's it. 8 can't wait.
Yeah. So my name's Hallie. I'm from Orange County, born and bred, and I'm a political science major as well.
Yes. So thank you, Hallie, for being on here. And I'm gonna come back to you, Mr. Tim Tom, but also Miss Quinlan. How are you, darling? Listen, we're gonna talk to you as well.
Hello. I'm Quinlan. I'm not totally sure what to say, but I'm really excited about this. I wasn't able to make the protest that you guys were at because I had gotten arrested at the previous one.
Right.
And it was a peaceful one as well. The cops just wanted a reason to arrest people.
Yes.
But my major isn't very relevant, musical theater, but my minor is psychology. So a lot of mental health things intersectionally.
Yes.
I'm really excited for that. I also really like queer issues and fighting for all of that. I'm non-binary myself. So yeah.
And my apologies, because you told me your pronouns, and I so my apologies with that. But yes, even talking about being arrested and what that, I definitely want to talk about that a little bit as we go later on in the show, because that is an issue that we don't talk a lot about. And you millennials, oh my God, to do that. So thank you so much, Quinlan. And Mr. Tim Tom himself, man, I'm trying to grow up and be like you, because you have this mic that I want. But tell us about you, Tim Tom, and what you do with this.
I'm just sort of a run-of-the-mill cartoonist. I'm lucky enough to be able to make YouTube videos. Oh, I'm back. Okay.
There we go. My bad.
Yeah, I'm like I was saying, I'm lucky enough to make YouTube videos for a living, so I don't know exactly how that qualifies me to say anything, but I'm excited to be here, and I'm really passionate about the current issues that everyone seems to be dealing with. And yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He says, I don't know what I have to do with this movement and everything. For those of you who don't know, let me tell you, for my audience who does not know who Tim Tom is an amazing cartoonist who started off he makes brilliant statements and would you call them short?
Yeah, so I
movies
make
or-
like short animated stories focused on a slightly younger audience, say like teenagers, 13 to 18. And I try to fit in, while being entertaining, fit in small little nuggets of like mental health.
Yes.
What would you call it? Like like morals or whatever, things that people can take away and hopefully have a slightly better perspective on the mental health issues that kids might be dealing with. So yeah.
Yes. And if you have not seen, please check out Tim Tom's YouTube videos and everything. You know, he has over 1.25 million. Yes, I said M with a million. I was just happy to hit 5,000 on my Facebook page last week. I'm like, woohoo!
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean,
but go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I've been there. You know, you got to start somewhere.
That's right. Hey, Dwight. Hey, good to see you out there. So listen, y'all, we want to, and if you have any questions, listen, just don't forget, just listen, put them in there. But let's get started with this. When we're talking about this whole movement of Black Lives Matter, and what we're seeing across the nation right now. One of Jason's and my colleagues, he is on Capitol Hill today in DC protesting and just bringing this relevant issue forward. What does this mean to you all, being the millennials, who you guys were born in the midst of 9/11? You guys were babies in that, but seeing social unrest to this degree and to this level, it's new. You know, seeing people beaten and these type of things. In my generation, it was trying to wane down, but for our parents, that was just an everyday issue that they saw. So let's start with you, Deji. How is this for you?
You know, it's interesting when you said being born into it. So I was born in '93, and we all know the year before that was Rodney King, and I was born here in LA. So I feel like growing up, you know, a lot of the stories that we were hearing from my parents grew up in the South. My mom, especially in Georgia, where there was white only, black only drinking fountains where my mother grew up. So for me, I experienced a lot of this from stories of my parents. I really didn't get a taste of it for myself until I got into college. I would say that was kind of the foretaste of experiencing systematic racism, oppression. You start to interact with more, white people. I grew up in a fairly diverse community. My high school was predominantly African American and Latino. So it started to unfold the more and more I got into college. You start to peel that onion back and start to see and recognize, like, okay, and especially all the shootings that were happening as well, over the last 10 years. So yeah, it's been interesting, man, to say the least.
Yeah. And so let me since you're talking, how was that navigating through higher education? Because let's be honest, there aren't a lot of African-American men in college settings. And then you going into your master's program, that then made it even that much more smaller in that. I can remember going to UC Berkeley and being in a class of 1,200. Yes, they have lecture halls full of 1,200. You get it from UCLA and UC Riverside in that, and where you are one of maybe 2, 3 on a good one, 5, and you go on, you scan in the room, go about save me a seat with that, really, just so you get some sort of alliance or just know that someone else got your back in that. How was that for you in the college realm for you?
You know what, man, for me, I came into college through the door that got opened to me through sports. It was through football. And so the first thing I experienced within a college setting that kind of opened my eyes to this reality, I'll never forget it. I went into one of my teammates, he threw a party after the game. And when I walked into his house, he had a Confederate flag on his wall. And everybody in the party was chilling and acting as if this was normal. And so me and some of the transfers that came into the school, we looking like, okay, this is going to be an interesting night. Are we going to fight? Are we going to have, what's going to happen tonight? Because never really experienced that. And just stuff like that. And then coming into the classroom setting, Marty, I can agree with you 100%. Being the only African-American male in a lot of my classes, you start to just question like what's going on. And definitely there's so much cultural ignorance that a lot of professors and classmates had that, you have to put up with every single day. And, we can talk about that later, but it was definitely a challenge.
You're right. That was part of the reason why, even though I'm a therapist and I have a master's in psychology, that's why my BA is not in psychology for that. My BA is in legal studies for going to law school, because the psychology department looked nothing like me. I was the only Black male in there. And when I tried to question it, the professor said it this way. Mr. Sellers, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting proud because I thought, and I pulled out the seating chart. Then he politely said, I wrote the book. And I said, touche. Went and changed that to a pass, no pass, and got my Black, up out of there as quickly as possible.
That's right.
In there, because I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to fight this battle and everything like that. Talk to us, young ladies, about your experience at UCLA. Keira, and UCLA is your second college because you went to Arizona first and then transferred to UCLA because of definitely microaggressions that you were feeling, as well as even Ashley, some of your experiences as well.
I think that for the most part, we both grew up in we grew up in Fontana, California, so right near Corona. And the Inland Empire is really diverse. It's a really diverse area for the most part. So same thing, like our high school was predominantly Black and Latino. So coming from kind of the
shout out to Edawanda.
Coming from the protected situation we were in, and I talked about it last week, how we kind of grew up in the age of passive racism. Where it's kind of just like hidden under the table, still racist rhetoric that we had gone through in our lives, but it was kind of hard to dissect and hard for us to identify growing up. And so for me, starting off at ASU was really a culture shock. I went to school with one of our best friends. Her name's Courtney. And that was my only friend, because not my only friend, but my closest friend, because it was hard to find people who were like me at the school, especially within the major of political science. There are not a lot of Black students in political science. So it was the same thing, just seeing one or two people who looked like me in these classes where we're talking about systematic oppression, and I'm in class with a bunch of students who don't really understand what systematic oppression is. So having to deal with that on a daily and weekly and monthly basis is kind of tiring and taxing for a while, especially on like mental health. And so surprisingly, coming from ASU and going to UCLA, I thought, it's going to be a huge difference. I was super excited. I was like, oh, it's going to be super diverse. It's in LA. Like, I'm used to California. Like, I can't wait to get back. And some of my friends from high school that go there had to message me, and they were like, don't be too, don't have such a, like, not a positive outlook, but they were like, don't expect too much when you come here. And I was like, you guys are tripping. Like, I'm coming from ASU, like, nothing can be as bad as that. And not as bad, but I would say UCLA is more disappointing than ASU, just because at ASU, you get what you expect. UCLA is the #1 public university in California. And they tout themselves as being one of the most diverse UCs in the California system. And it's kind of a joke. There's not a lot of Black students in any area of their school, especially within the political science major. There's probably a handful of us. And they don't necessarily listen to Black students. Just, I think 2 weeks ago, the Jackie Robinson field that we have at UCLA was used to detain people that were protesting.
Yes, it was.
And then they lied about it afterwards. So it's just really telling of like, I think people see that on the news and they think this is an isolated incident at UCLA, and it's not isolated incidents at UCLA. They have a history of anti-Black incidents that happen at their school that they kind of try to brush under the rug. And then they'll invite really higher Black celebrities or Black politicians to come and speak at their events, and then it'll kind of cover it up. But the students, the Black students that go there, we face discrimination and anti-Black policies every single day that we're there.
Interesting that you, real quick on that with using UCLA. One of my patients who is Hispanic and Egyptian at a peaceful protest rally downtown LA. Of course, they got 8 buses, and when the Twin Towers of downtown LA got booked, they shipped them all the way to UCLA, and he was detained. So I can't wait, Quinlan, to talk to you about that as well. He was detained, and he was on that bus for 7 hours. He was not allowed to use the restroom. He was handcuffed that entire time. In that hot bus the whole time, and their method of finding people on there bus by bus was with an index card. Are you? Nope. Are you? Nope. Can you imagine hundreds of names they're going through just like that? Until you. So the trauma that he's experiencing after that, we are just talking through all of that. On a weekly basis, and so Quinlan, I can only imagine the trauma that you felt with that as well, and with that. So then that, not only that, so they took him from downtown LA. For those who may not know, who are part of different country, what the distance between downtown LA and where UCLA sits, that's not just around the corner. And so they dropped him off there. That's where they released him. So he had to find his own way back home.
It was terrible. It was terrible.
Wow.
And then coming from an institution like UCLA that, again, touts themselves as being one of the most diverse UCs in the system, it's kind of a slap in the face to all of the students that go there. It was the most disappointing thing I think I've seen from UCLA since. Right.
Ashley, what about yourself?
It seems like UCs love to say that they're diverse. My school has a large Latinx population. I mentioned that before.
Yes.
But I totally identify still with walking into a classroom and being like, did I slip through the cracks or something? Like, how did I get here? Where are my people at? Like, and it gives you this kind of like imposter syndrome where you feel like, do I belong here? Like, is this space, but then I realized that no, the space wasn't created for me. So that's maybe why I feel that way. But it is like a strange feeling to walk into a place and you feel othered. It's a strange feeling.
It is. Thank you so much. And then I want to kind of talk to the ladies here. I want to talk to Miss Hallie and then Quinlan about that. Why is this such an important movement for you guys to join in on the Black Lives Matter movement?
Hi, sorry, we're just having a few audio problems with
That's okay.
That I headphones. Can you pull that down so I can hear? Because mine aren't working. Can you hold this?
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
We're getting it together.
You said.
Yes. Why is it so? Yeah. Why is it so important that you have joined, and what makes this movement so important for you to join this whole Black Lives Matter movement? Because I want you to share about this, what you shared at the rally.
Oh, I just obviously it's an incredibly important cause, and it always has been, like with systemic racism, and I just wanted to do my part in any way that I could. And Orange County is very conservative, very white. It's starting to get a little bit blue, but it's we're dealing with a lot of that. What was it that you asked me to share?
Yeah, I wanted you to share with the 8 Can't Wait.
Oh, yeah. 8 Can't Wait is a campaign that Campaign Zero put together. Obama was behind it, and a few other people like DeRay and stuff like that. It's about there are 8 policies that police departments can put into effect right away. With those 8 policies, I believe around 72, you see around 72% decrease in police brutality, and you don't need to wait for any laws or any kind of budget passes or anything. They can just be put into effect right away. And I think that's like, obviously it's not ideal in all places, but in places like Orange County, where you don't necessarily have that like backing, you don't necessarily have the pressure to do things like more serious reform, like defunding the police or things like that. I think it can be really effective to try and like get something done right now while we have that momentum.
Yes. Talk to about some of the 8 that's on there. I know one of them was talking about the chokeholds that you were talking about. Do you still recall some of those? Because you were like dropping so much knowledge on us. You were like, bam, bam, with that.
Yeah. So let's see. I have them here. Yeah. The 8 policies is banning chokeholds and strangleholds.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Requiring de-escalation. Requiring a warning before shooting.
Yes.
One that seems super obvious, but a lot of places don't do, is requires the officer to exhaust all other alternatives before shooting. So like if they can restrain someone, they have to restrain them before they shoot them, which, you know, that seems like common sense, but apparently we have to push for these things. The other 4 are duty to intervene, banning shooting at moving vehicles, requiring the use of force continuum, and requiring comprehensive reporting. So just just making sure that everything is by the books, and it's really just about like pushing police departments and pushing police chiefs to try and change the culture of the department in a way that will hold officers responsible. And yeah, if you don't have the pressure, because there's so many small towns that are now joining in and protesting, and like there's so many conservative areas that don't have that pressure to try and defund the police and try and get some serious reform, and these are things that they can do. So I think it's really powerful.
Yes, because you had even mentioned that Anaheim is 9 out of 66 police departments leading in police brutality. Now that's a nationwide statistic, or was that a statewide statistic?
It was nationwide of the 60 most populous cities. Anaheim is, it's 9th place. It wasn't police brutality, I misspoke. It was officer-involved shootings is what it was.
Yeah, officer. Okay, so in officer-involved shootings, that's okay. Yeah. Anaheim, here in wonderful Orange County, come on, in Newport Beach, in Huntington Beach, all of that. Hold on, I'm gonna bring us all back here. That Anaheim, come on now, is ranked number 9 out of all of that. That's scary.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. A lot of people don't think that it's. They think they're joining in the movement and they're protesting something that's happening somewhere else, but they need to realize that it's happening here. It's in your hometown. Like these things are something that you can affect. You have to look to your local politicians and actually affect some change, because it's not far away. It's in your backyard.
It really is. It really is. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Tim, what about yourself? Why was it so important for you to join such a movement like this as Black Lives Matter? Okay, we're getting him on there.
Well,
I don't know.
I could hear, but we'll see if this works. Sorry for the audio issues there.
You're okay.
I guess the good mic isn't enough. One thing that struck me, I grew up in Idaho in a predominantly white city. And so growing up, I didn't have a massive exposure to Black culture, or even, there's like one Black kid at my high school, right? And so I wasn't exposed to any racism because I wasn't exposed to other races growing up, So it's been a little bit of a culture shock, I guess, to sort of like have grown up and gone out into the world and see how much racism there still is, I guess, because, growing up hearing about, Martin Luther King and, being taught the history of race in America, I guess, especially living in a predominantly white area, I was sort of like, oh, so racism is over, right? I mean, that's like my naive, I just didn't have any experience with it. And then to hear that, most, if not all, Black kids growing up have the conversation with their parents about like how to deal with the police when you get pulled over, not if, but when,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like that's not even something that had even crossed my mind before because I was just so inexperienced. And to know that it's like as common as sort of the birds and the bees talk was really shocking. And now, especially on social media, as that's sort of become my job, I have no escape. And to see how much, to see video after video of police brutality and police violence, and of course, George Floyd and all the other, I mean, the list of names is
it's so
endless.
extensive.
That I don't know. It's been very difficult to see that, and it's like, well, how can you not try to do something?
Right. Well, we appreciate that. Deja here talked about this whole thing, and I'm gonna say, did you have that same talk too? I know I had that talk with my sons about when he got his license. I said, now I have to have a different talk with you. I now have to talk to you about when you get pulled over by the police. This is what you have to do with that talk. Did you have that talk yourself, or was that talk given to you? And how do you respond in such situations?
Yes, definitely got that talk. So I have two older brothers, and they're well into their 40s now. And even seeing their interactions with the police as a young teenager,
right,
you start to get messages about things you should and should not do. So my dad gave me that talk really early about when you get pulled over, you know, yes, sir, no, sir. Can I reach and get my wallet? It's in the glove. You know, can I put, just to be overcautious, just because, we've seen it too many times. We have too much conclusive evidence for how things can go awry really quickly. So yeah, I got that from my pops, well before 7th grade, I think.
And Marty, if I can chime
that's
in
good.
Fast,
Please.
And so with that question that you asked, you have 3 generations here of Black men. You have your generation, my generation, and his generation. And so what does it say to us for the fact that we've had 3 different generations, and all of our generations, we've had to have that same dialogue and that same conversation with our sons, three different generations. And so I believe that it speaks volumes, and it also speaks volume to the dehumanization of African-American men.
Man, can I just share, just this past year, Marty, I was driving to LAX. I had a flight. I had like a 10 a.m. flight, and I'm on the freeway. And a cop pulls me over on the freeway.
Right.
So I'm on the 210. I'm like, Lord Jesus. So I get pulled over. He asked the question, of course, he says, do you know why I'm pulling you over? I said, sir, I have no idea why you're pulling me over. He said, I'm pulling you over because the way you merged onto the freeway, it was an illegal merge, and you weren't supposed to merge like that or something I had no idea about. I said, officer, I had no idea. Right. But I can't even begin to describe that feeling that was stirring up on the inside of me. Yes. Seeing the cop car behind me, and just knowing that there's like so many thoughts and emotions that come up that I can't even explain. Fear, literally, you're like, is this gonna be my last go round? Right. And I don't know how. Luckily, I told him I was a pastor. That kind of, I guess, got me out of it. I said, sir, I'm a pastor. I'm about to catch a flight and go into a conference. And he said, hey, man, you can go ahead and go. But it could have went awry. You know what I'm saying? But those feelings and those triggered emotions that come, not only just to myself, but all Black men and women, I think, who experience that feeling of the police officer being behind you and getting pulled over. It's sickening. Yeah.
Tim, we had a question that was asked to by Marilyn, of course. She says, do you have, what goes through your mind, or do you have any feelings or emotions that might come to you as you're being pulled over? And I think just to kind of show maybe some differences, I don't know.
Yeah, when the handful of times that I've been pulled over, I certainly get a shot of anxiety of like, oh man, I'm going to get a ticket. But never is it like fearing for my life, right? I'm anxious, and the cop comes up or whatever and asks, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm a pretty like anxious person in general, I guess. So I think usually I'm like pretty visibly anxious. And my experience with the police is like, they're like, calm down, right? Like the cop is like reassuring to me, right?
Okay. Wow.
And so, which is like literally the exact opposite, where the cop is like, oh, I mean, I don't think I look particularly threatening to begin with, right? My experience with the police has been that they try to put me at ease or whatever. And I think that, contrasting that with your experience just shows how ridiculously unfair it is.
Well, thanks so much, Tim, with that. I want to talk to you. Let's talk, Quinlan, about your experience would have been last week with being arrested yourself with how you were treated and your experience for speaking out for your thoughts about social injustice and how it affected you.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up in Texas, for sure, I've been fighting for this my whole life as soon as I realized all the injustices. And I just wanted to add to that last conversation real quick.
Sure.
So all of that is so like easy to mask. They're just like, oh, well, we didn't pull you over because of your race,
Right.
And used to fit that in. In Texas, there was a bill that was pretty close to being passed that was allowing cops to pull people over based on whether they think they fit a profile that looks like I went to a protest about that. I gave a big speech. We were able to convince a few people to not pass that. But the fact that that was even on the table is just disgusting. It's trying to get into what you were saying, more overt versions of racism, like trying to get not just systematic, but also just absolutely out there in plain view. And the more something in plain view and say it over and over, the more people get used to it and think it's okay. Sorry, that's not the question you asked.
No. Thank you for sharing that. And your heart and your passion for that, because this does eventually, it's going to trickle down to affect everyone eventually. And then we're going to talk about economics that it'll affect later.
Yes. You wanted to know about the protest,
Yeah,
right?
your experience.
Okay. So we were marching. There was a curfew placed. It was changed with very little notice.
Right.
I, having just moved here, did not get any messages of it. I didn't see it on social media. I hadn't been checking. I was not informed of the curfew in nearly enough time. They should have said it earlier. There shouldn't have been a curfew at all. But so they blocked us in, the police blocked us in, and then sent in helicopters and started blasting things like, this is an unlawful gathering, you need to disperse immediately. But when people tried to disperse, no matter which direction you go, you will run into the cops and they will arrest you. I stayed, even though curfew was passed, I kept going. So did most of people in the parade. We kept on going until we couldn't anymore.
Right.
And then when we couldn't anymore, we tried to leave. We went home. We were like, okay, this is as much good as we can do with this at this exact moment. Anything more will escalate. We tried to get out of the way. The police followed us, and there was like a small group of us who were trying to like call an Uber. The police came up to us and yelled, disperse immediately. We dispersed. We went in different directions. I went with my friend, and then everyone else split off. They followed us and arrested us.
Wow.
Even though we were leaving and on the phone with the Uber. And then my friend who was calling the Uber was like, wait, never mind, sorry, and canceled the ride. But then later, after we had been handcuffed, the police were like, looks like that Uber never came. We're like, are you saying we're lying? And he's like, well, it would be here by now. Just ridiculous. They were accusatory. They put us in twist-tied handcuffs that they did not know how to use. They tightened it so much so that my hands turned purple and started to swell. It cut off circulation. I could barely feel anything except for pain at that point. And they were like, oh gosh, this is bad. Let's try to figure out how to cut it out. They could not fit a knife in between my skin and the ties. They could not get it off. And that's just ridiculous. They did not let us have access to water, food, bathrooms, anything for the entire time we transported and the entire time that we were actually at the jail. There was a toilet in there. They did not let us have hand sanitizer or soap or anything like that. They shoved us in a hot, sweaty bus. It took us like 5 hours to get to the department that was 10 minutes away.
Wow.
And they lied to us. They told us many different things. Like, even if we just tried to basic human decency, like, hey, what time is it? The guy would be like, I don't know, fold his arm to reveal a watch on his wrist. Like, it was very clear that they were trying to assert and show, we don't have to tell you anything. You guys are the criminals.
And all because of your involvement with a movement that is just based upon civil rights, and that should be common courtesies before us all. But I'm so glad that and thank you guys for everyone, for you guys standing up and just promoting and doing this, because this is just not something that's going to change overnight, because we're dealing with 400 plus years of systemic racism that is just not going to go anywhere with that. And I pose this because out here in California, the movement is kind of dying down a little bit, depending upon where you live. If you're in the heart of LA, that's not, because they had another huge rally today. With
today.
Oh, you did? How was that rally today? How was that?
It was pretty good. It was me and Hallie who went. Okay. It was like much nicer. There was no curfew. The cops, I didn't see, they made a police line, and we just kind of avoided it. But it was marching, it was chanting, it was pretty good. There was some weirdness near the end, but overall it was
right, because that was in the West Hollywood area, definitely sponsored by Pride Month and all that, because I know there was this mix up with Black Lives Matter and the LA Pride group that came together. So Black Lives Matter ended up having theirs last weekend, and Pride had theirs this weekend. Almost same walking pattern and all that. But anyway, what does it mean? And so my next question is this for you, millennial: what next? What do we do next? What do you guys do next? Do we let the movement die? Do we stop speaking to it? What next? And Quinlan, I see you down. I'm gonna start with you because you on it. You was going, no.
Yeah, no, we do not let it die down. I think one of the main things that we are learning from this movement, which has now become the biggest civil rights movement in world history, which is incredible, and it's about time. Is that when people, especially older people, especially white older people, tell us protesting doesn't do anything, what are you actually affecting? Just shut up and stay home. This is having an effect. We are already starting to see some tangible change. There have already been changes being made. If this is teaching us anything, it's that yes, our voices are heard. Yes, we can make a difference. And no, we shouldn't just sit down and shut up and be accepting of the things that are problems and have been problems. And just because something is the way it always has been, isn't a reason to not make it better. It needs to be done. So what we do next is we do not let it die. We keep going, we keep fighting. We use social media to our advantage, because that's one of the biggest ways that we've been able to find ways to organize, to get the word out, for people to share their experiences. And I think that's one of the biggest things that perpetuates it, which is also dangerous, because social media, things move on pretty quickly, and people might end up seeing it as a fad or just another hashtag.
Exactly.
Black lives have always mattered and will always matter. This isn't just a trend. These are
Deji, you're absolutely right. Deji, there was the question out here, because I know there's a big, huge controversy in Christendom right now, and it's almost like we've put it as Black Christians versus white Christians and all that. And so the question comes, Deji, you have a lot of white friends who are in ministry. How do they respond, or how have they responded to this whole notion of Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, so the response has been twofold. For a lot of my friends who have already been a part of this work, because a lot of us, we have been a part of this work, especially in college, working with our college president to make our classes more racially diverse and to make our classroom experience more suitable for students of color. So some of my white friends in ministry have already been a part of that dialogue. So now they're just continuing those conversations, using their privilege and their influence where they already have been. But for others of them, and I don't know if y'all got this too, but over these last 3 weeks, I've gotten a flood of text messages from just some of my white colleagues and counterparts saying, I'm here for you, or I'm here to, how can I help you? And very honestly, Marty, a lot of times it was a shock because I didn't really know quite how to respond, and this whole thing with that. But I'm learning now that people want to get engaged and they want to learn, and so I'm learning with a lot of white colleagues and even white former supervisors. They want to be able to learn and they want to change some of their organizations to be more suitable for Black people. So I'm seeing that some people do want to learn, and then also too, some people don't really get it and they're not really seeing it.
Right.
And those are tough conversations to have too. So it's all over the place, but it's been overwhelmingly positive from a lot of my white colleagues, for sure.
Wonderful. That's great. That's a great experience in that, because you guys are the movers and shakers. You guys, like Quinlan has said, you guys who have post something on social media and y'all will have thousands of millennials show up in 5.25 minutes and just start a whole nother movement with that. So for
shout out to Generation Z too. We don't want to leave them out. Gen Z.
Yeah.
Gen Z, yes.
They killing it too.
They're killing it. Yeah, Jinx.
Right. See, I'm all confused with these gens and all that. Listen, y'all 30 and below, y'all doing it. You are doing it 30 and below, because you guys still, what I love about the innocence that you guys have, you still have this wonderful innocence that, racism, it doesn't exist, but we are better than that as a people, and it's shocking, Jason and I, we knew how to put on the mask. I knew how to. Hi, how are you? Yes. Oh, things are just beautiful with that. And then turn around and be like, yo, what's going on, dog? Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
We know how to put on all those different masks and everything. Well, you guys are definitely more like, hey, that's my friend, and we're together, and you guys don't see as much color and everything that we were forced to in this. So yes, Keira and Ashley, how do you respond? What's next for you guys? How do you keep your group, your generation, your peers motivated? Because I know, Keira, you're taking all these wonderful notes with that and what you're doing. Come on, poli-sci future attorney, talk to me.
I think it's just really knowing your information moving forward, and really being cognizant of the different organizations that are out there. We were talking about this the other night, like the Black Lives Matter movement. Also, just to touch on the Campaign Zero organization real quick, because there has been a lot of disputes recently about Campaign Zero. And the misappropriation of funds with that organization, and also along with the 8 Can't Wait. I have looked over the 8 Can't Wait idea and basically what it's pushing for, and unfortunately it came out that the 8 Can't Wait was kind of pushed a little too early, and a lot of the research and the data behind 8 Can't Wait, where they're talking about the improving 70% or more of police brutality numbers, wasn't correct. And so in situations like that, I think moving forward, organizations have to be more open about where they're putting their money, especially with the influx of money that people have received within the organizations have received within the last few weeks. They have to be much more open about where they're putting that money, because for organizations like this, where people think, there's an ally in Campaign Zero, when there might not have been, because the funds weren't going to what people thought they were going to do. There was a lot of celebrities that were supporting this organization, and they weren't really supporting the cause that they were supposed to. And then in the future, when we have things, when we're trying to make formations like 8 Can't Wait to push legislative agenda, or in that case, to push the type of agenda that would happen before legislative agenda, we have to understand that research about police brutality cannot happen overnight. Research about police brutality is something that's going to happen on an individual state level. It's going to take months, if not a full year or years, to happen on a grander scale. And so that's why I think the option moving forward is going the route of defunding the police, rather than expecting the police to reform. because you can't really reform systemic oppression or systemic racism. That was a thing where police aren't rooted in protecting Black people. That's just a fact. They're not here to protect Black people. They're here to protect white people from Black people. And so we cannot expect an organization to continuously change their ideas when they were not rooted in them to begin with. And so by defunding them, I think people get the idea that, you know, you defund the police, and then we won't have police, which for some people could be, it's not the case for everyone. It could be the case in the end, but as right now, defunding the police means taking however many hundreds of millions of dollars, especially in the city of billions of dollars,
6 billion in Los Angeles.
6 billion in Los Angeles that they put in the police fund, and you're taking that money out because
come on, numbers.
You know, it's taking that money and actually funding it into Black communities, funding it into mental health, funding it into a bunch of different social resources, to where you can have actual, like if a mental health situation is happening, we shouldn't have police responding to that. It should be mental health professionals responding to that. Same with drug addiction, same with domestic violence.
There you go.
The police can't respond to that, and they shouldn't respond to that. So when we defund them, it is going to mean, it unfortunately is going to mean people are going to lose their jobs. The police force is going to be smaller, but that's what has to happen because a larger police force isn't doing anything for anyone.
But you're absolutely right, because when we're dealing with, and I love this, Hallie and I were kind of informally talking about this last week when we're talking about mental health challenges from a school setting. We now have put these police in school settings to deal with mental health issues that are really not policing issues, but they are definitely mental health issues. And Hallie was, when you were talking about defunding, she was over there talking about, yeah, that's right, we're going to defund and get the money in the right spot, and that type of thing. But we are dealing with these various issues with that. And I love that you're talking about definitely looking at where the money is spent. And you talked about last week, holding these organizations responsible for spending it in right ways. Not that we give it to them and now it's like, okay, we gave it to you. That's like, now I want to see your books. I want to see the accountability. What are you doing with it? And it should be definitely public knowledge with that there. Interview process. Yeah, listen, see, that's my X-Man. What's up, X-Man? You talk about interview process would also be as well as taking money. That's right. When looking about the interviewing process with that as well. Excellent, X-Man, definitely. And of course, your mother. Thank you for explaining defunding police, because only narrative in the media is there will be no police, and that's not correct. That is so correct with that. Keira, I'm going to get a little personal, if you don't mind, with you, because, you know, growing up biracial, and what that, because people don't look at you as being, don't say, oh, well, Keira's 50% Black and 50% white, because you have a white mother and you have a Black father. But when society looks at you, they look at you as just being a Black female with that. And so I thank you for sharing those things about that and how passionate you are, and speak to maybe even the economy and the challenge that you have, because you love both sides of your family equally. You know, in society, we want you to say you either love your Black side and hate your white side, or vice versa. Love your white side and hate your Black side. Even though I'm calling you Black, if you have a 10th of Black blood in you, you're going to be considered Black here in America. We don't care about any of those things. So what is that like for you?
That's funny, because me and Ashley talk about this all the time. Me, Ashley, and all my friends. Just what that's like and how people represent themselves. So I think in the US, it's kind of a thing too, when people are 50% Black, or they have, like, I have a white mom, Black dad, or any white parent and a Black parent, it's kind of trying to an erasure of a certain identity. And so what happens is a lot of people we've kind of made an identity out of being mixed. And so you have a lot of kids, especially kids that are my age, that will walk around and you ask them, like, what are you? Like, are you Black? Are you white? They're like, well, no, I'm mixed. And that for me was never a thing. That was never an identity. My mother's white, but she raised me as a Black woman. So
yes, she did.
When I left the house, I knew that I was Black. When I was in the house, I knew that I was Black. I never grew up thinking I'm mixed, or I never grew up thinking that I'm better than somebody because I'm mixed, which is what you see within the community of people who are biracial, unfortunately, a lot of time. Is you see people that think that they're better than people in the Black community because they are part white or part whatever they are, not fully Black. And we also have to recognize that, what I recognize as well, is that because of the fact that I do have lighter skin, because of the fact that I have a white mother, I have certain privileges that my friends do not have in this world. When people look at me, I am the acceptable version of Black. I am the acceptable version of what it is to be a Black woman. And so I am desired more as a Black woman because of that. There's a fetishization that happens.
Fetishization?
With women who are biracial and men who are biracial.
Right.
Same fetishization. And my philosophy with that is you can either, as someone who stands in being biracial, you can either allow that to define you and you can play into that fetishization in that role, or you can stand taller than that and you can understand that, you know, at the end of the day, you are Black, and any privilege that I hold being half white, any privilege that I hold having lighter skin, I recognize that, and I use that to allow especially my friends, all of my friends who have darker skin than me, I want to bring them to the table with me so that they can talk about their experiences, and I can give them that leg up, which is the same as an ally should do, no matter what capacity you're in as an ally. And so that's kind of how I view my situation personally.
Yes, love it. Wow, thank you so much for that. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. So I just want to chime in on that. You guys are in the California area, and I'm all the way over here in the deep, deep South. And so exactly, total use difference. But I thank you for your transparency in that, because that is a systemic thing. That is a thing that has been kind of passed on by generation to generation. Even, you know, during slavery time, we talked, you know, about the dark-skinned slave and the light-skinned slave. And unfortunately,
the field and house.
Right, exactly. And unfortunately, that mentality is still with us. And it's a mentality that is also with other races when they look at us from that perspective. And so even when you get into racial profiling and just all of those things, and so I looked at, you know, the three Black men that we have here with all three different skin tones, and I can assure you, if we're placed in a situation, we will all be treated differently because of the pigmentation of our skin tone. And so that's something that I think, you know, it's been just generational, but thank you for your transparency in that and sharing that, because it is a hard plot, you know, a hard journey when you are raised in a system where, you know, dark skin was this, because people say, oh, you a good bit dark skinned, dude. I'm like, huh? You know, you know, what does that mean? And so, but then it was like, you know, she's light skinned and pretty, you know, he's this, what have you. And I think, you know, that has really caused a lot of things that continue to add to the oppression of African Americans.
Absolutely.
But then we cannot, and that's a whole nother discussion. We got to deal with the self-hatred that we have within our own communities because of the color of our skin. Yes, because of the colorization that comes with that as well. With that, let's talk to Ashley. Talk to us about your parents being Belizean and coming here to America and what that means to them as they talk about that. I love this comment that X-Man has as well. Xavier Thomas agreed, and especially if you're educated and speak different, you get criticized with that. That's so true. So true, X. So Ashley, talk to us about that.
Well, my household's kind of split. My mom tends to lean a little left, and my dad's a little to the right. Even I had to talk to him about what defunding the police meant, and that it doesn't mean that the police are going to completely disappear in all aspects of our life. And I even had to let him know that there are some 18,000 police departments in the United States, and the way that they handle a situation across the nation is not standardized. And that's unacceptable. In any field that you work in, there are expectations of you for how you handle yourself, and there are consequences if you don't follow the guidelines. And so I just think that continuing to pressure our local officials to push this kind of reform is necessary. But above all, I believe that defunding the police is absolutely essential. We need to shrink their duties. They are not equipped with the tools to handle the level of responsibility that they've been given. They fail far too often. And I think that, much like Keira said, when it comes to, especially now with the influx of funds that a lot of these organizations are receiving, even like Black Lives Matter is not a formalized nonprofit. And so they're receiving these funds, or people are receiving these funds on behalf of the movement when they don't really yet have an actual legal obligation to allocate these funds in the appropriate way. And so what we don't want to do is be misled and be the blind leading the blind, and really go ahead and educate yourself about where you're putting your money, what their track record is, what's the work that they've done prior to this. I'm sorry, you asked me about my Belizean parents and I went off on something else.
That's okay, you're fine. That's all a part of it.
When it comes to my parents, they are, like I said, my dad agrees with the idea, but he thinks he's more rational about it. He thinks that defunding the police is outer space. It's not going to work. He thinks that the language defund is going to somehow lose the idea of what's happening. And what I really believe is that people who don't want to understand simply won't understand. Because you're still arguing with people about what Black Lives Matter means. They still want to tell you all lives matter.
Right.
I feel like, honestly, if you really want to understand the movement, if you are really here to see Black people, to realize their humanity, you're simply going to have to do the work and understand what people mean when they speak to you. And so that's what I think people are going to have to really look inward and realize that this is not a moment in time. This is going to continue past my mother and fathers, when they pass on, and me too. And so you have to stay cognizant and not get caught up in the moment and feel like there's, of course, momentum, but they have to realize, and everyone has to realize, that this is going to be ongoing for the rest of our lives.
Excellent. Tim, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask a question, if you don't mind. And thank you for talking about
go right ahead.
The problems with finance with Campaign Zero. I wasn't aware they were having financial issues, so thank you so much for bringing that up. I agree with everything you've said about defunding the police. I agree that we have to kind of dismantle this system because, it started with slave catchers and it has just built and built. And it's something that we need to look at and kind of push for that defunding, push for that like abolitionist reform. Where I had always viewed 8 Can't Wait as kind of a stepping stone in places that you see the pressure already dying off, like places like Orange County, where like it's that momentum is already like going away because we have so many conservative white kind of personality here. What do you recommend with that, with pushing for defunding or trying to find more immediate form in places that you don't necessarily have that pressure? I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
So I think that, well, number one, I don't necessarily 1,000% disagree with It Can't Wait. I think that my that kind of like where I think that It Can't Wait falls short is just in the sheer research and demographics that they have. I think that, which and it sucks because because it has so much celebrity, so many celebrities have endorsed it, and so many celebrities have endorsed the organization as a whole and the movement. And so I think it came off as like, okay, this is this great movement that we can start doing to ensure that people are just not experiencing police brutality on a scale that they are, which in theory is great, but in reality, how many more rules and regulations are we going to give the police that they're going to follow? Exactly. I think that now, and like you were saying earlier, when they have the It Can't Wait is trying to de-escalate the situation, and shooting somebody using a firearm should be the last possible method. Simply put, if we are dealing with honestly a corporation or an organization that does not have something as simple as de-escalating a situation before pulling out a firearm, why would we go out and expect them to do it now? This is a group of people who have never had to answer to any type of law and order ever. They kind of rule the city as they will. They act on their own accord in any given situation. And so I think that 8 Can't Wait is a stepping stone, but I just wonder, where's that stone going to be? How far away till we get there? And how good is it really going to do? I think it's getting such a bad rep just sheerly because of the numbers thing, because it has been touted as improving 70% of police brutality, when in fact, I don't even think the actual data comes close to 50. I think it lies somewhere far below. And so we're going to put all of these 8 Can't Wait, which is still going to have to be a process to get any police department to accept the 8 Can't Wait rhetoric. And after that process, it's kind of going to be like a blanket effect. It's just going to be like okay, we're going to use this to cover up everything that's happened, when really, what is it actually doing? Okay, we can't put people in chokeholds before. We can't put people in chokeholds. Well, we shouldn't be putting people in chokeholds regardless. And it's...
Well, we understand that because... Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think we have to have some outside agencies that are definitely reviewing, that are non-biased, that have no attachments whatsoever to hold us accountable. Just like in the healthcare field and hospital, they have outside agencies that come in and do accreditations with it. And I'm here's my proposal as well, because the mental health field is changing in California. So just, in California, we've had to go through, those who are foster family agencies and group homes had to go through a whole change of their process. And because we had beforehand high school level people with no educational training whatsoever, as long as you were 21, you could get hired on to be a child care provider at a group home. Well, you had no formalized training with that. Right. Now they're making it a requirement that you have to be a BA with some sort of child development requirements and regulations as well. And then you have to be regulated by an outside governing body that has nothing to do with the state or anything like that, and pay, by the time you get done, is somewhere around the area about $15,000 for a 3-year certification to come in, and you can get a conditional one that has to be renewed every year. Why can't we have the same type of things for police regulatory bodies? And why can't police, because you only got to have, now when I say this, and there's no disrespect, because there's great police officers out there, but why is it you have to go through what is it, a six month, maybe
9 months,
whatever,
and then you have a license.
It's not a lot of places 6 months,
right?
Yeah.
Yes,
so
with that
the law in 9 months, but someone who's going through law school, which is someone who's going to practice the law, it's going to take me 4 years before I'm able to step inside of a courtroom and practice the law for the very people who are being arrested by people who are enforcing the law in 9 months, 6 months. Mm-hmm. So it has to be independent auditing, and it has to be I know that people get like not nervous when we say like legislation, because legislation does take a long time, but there has to be an accountability, and the only way to have accountability is through our legislation. So there has to be a call to action from governors. There has to be a call to action from our state legislators on a smaller scale. Yes. And fix it systematically first. That's how we start smaller, and then get to the larger government.
Yeah, it's simply too easy to become a cop. It's too easy to become a cop.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like ramifications of their job in their communities and moving outward onto a national scale. They're the most probably influential part of local government in a lot of ways. Their job needs to be taken.
Local government, yes.
And unfortunately, their job is only taken.
Yes. Tim.
So.
Yeah.
Yes. Tim, talk to us about that, because I saw you shaking your head about that too.
Well, I was just agreeing. I think it's ridiculous that a police officer can, become a police officer with only 6 months of training, right? We hold doctors and healthcare workers to such high and exacting standards. it seems like somebody who is given the authority to like, you know, kill someone, a license to kill, should be trained extensively and hold to incredibly high standards. And I think, you know, a lot of what we're seeing is a culture of like, you know, protection between police officers. You know, I've seen a lot of stories of police officers talking about, you know, oh, I tried to blow the whistle on something, but then my entire unit or whatever, I'm not sure the terminology, turned their back on me and wouldn't show up as backup to calls where I was in danger, or you know, would harass me and try to get me fired and stuff for showing you know, like blowing the whistle on people who were doing wrong things. And so, yeah, there's this big conversation about how many bad apples are there, but really there's a culture that stops the good apples in police, you know, in the police force from doing good and combating the bad.
Exactly.
Because there's there's this brotherhood. And I think that, you know, until that's broken up, then you can't expect the police force to protect anyone other than themselves.
You're absolutely right. You're right. This has been such a wonderful dialogue, y'all. We could continue this for on and on, but in this, with that, and I want to start with Deji. What's next for you, or what do you feel, and how do you feel that you can impact the generation and those that you have influence over? So what's next for you, Deji?
Yeah, so first of all, I think there's so many different ways that we can go about the next step. And I think for myself personally, where I feel called to at least make the impact is educationally and then economically. Because whenever we're talking about racism, we're always talking about how the economic implications of what that means for communities of Black people.
Yes.
So personally, what I'm doing is using my voice and my experience to educate within organizations that I'm connected to, and specifically even my alumni at a specific university, to be able to equip them with tools and resources to continue to not only just create policies, you know, but how do we also then begin to create a culture where these rights and these values and these principles are the norm? Because I think even if you just sign law and get legislation and get policies, you still have to deal with the hearts of people. I mean, you know, these are, you know, when we're talking about racism and hatred of Black people, this is a heart issue. It's not always a policy issue. So I'm seeing about how can, especially church leaders, how can we as church leaders come together and address this at the cultural level, meaning like, how do we change the dialogue? How do we change the environment around these things so that there's a culture of appreciation for Black people and appreciation for others that are not like ourselves? And that's not easy work. That's long work. I know I'm in the long game. So just continuing to use my voice to speak up when I'm called upon. And even I'm seeing some success happening now with certain diversity trainings that are taking place with organizations that I'm excited about, you know, being able to contribute to. So, but we're playing the long game, and yeah, it's a hard issue. So for sure.
Excellent. Thank you. Quinlan, what's your thoughts on that? What next?
On what next? I think the reason that it's losing a lot of motivation or momentum, as you were saying, and I mean, even when it loses momentum, we need to be the momentum. Like, we have to just pull it through.
That's right.
Like dragging it through the ground. Yeah, but I think the reason that it's losing a lot of momentum, not only just because of, like, you know, the short attention span on social media, etc., but also because of how vague it seems. Like, everyone will be like, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, I can just say that and then be fine. But the thing is what do we do with that? We take the defunding the police. Where do we reallocate those funds? We need to put more focus on social services, on mental health things, especially because Black people are extremely likely to be misdiagnosed and very rarely have access to other Black therapists because it's just not always available. And there are lots of issues that just white therapists don't understand. And there's things like queer issues as well, like Black trans women. 47% of Black trans women have been incarcerated. That is insane. So we need to be focusing on all the details, all the specifics under the entire umbrella of Black Lives Matter, because it's not just the what you think of as like a default person. It is every kind of person. It is the disabled, it is the queer, it is everyone. And we need to start working on each individual step along the way. And I think that's where we find the momentum, is we get people who are passionate in each of the areas to start having a direction to go with all the passion and anger and justice and righteousness.
Yes, Quinlan, that is so true, because we haven't even really addressed, and we could do a whole show. And when I do that show, I'm definitely going to have you back on with that one. But when we're talking about the transgender group that is out there, and we're looking at Black transgender and how much additional hatred and brutality that has happened even within the Black community with that. We're not even showing love to that. I don't have to agree with you to love you. Let me say, I don't have to agree with you to love you with that, because we are still human beings in this thing called flesh and blood with that. So awesome.
Black Lives Matter is not a conditional statement.
Come on. You're absolutely right with that. Being that's right.
Misdiagnosed. Yep, exactly.
Yes. Marilyn talks about we, the church, need to speak up, speak out. That they need to wake up and stop moving slow. That's definitely a whole nother thing with that. Keith talking about come through, Quinlan. I know that's right.
Go ahead, Quinlan. Go ahead now.
She got a fan base already.
Right.
Yes. Tim, definitely you and Hallie, what's your thought for what's next?
I mean, I think it's, well, one, I wanted to say earlier that it's really clear to me that like all of humanity is weaker when anyone is disenfranchised.
Come on.
In terms of what's next, I think this might be a little bit of a tangent, but I heard a story about a group of people in New York who were trying to fight against a new high-rise that was being built, and they were protesting the high-rise, and it was still moving forward. And it wasn't until they offered an alternative that people actually got on board. And so they're like, okay, instead of a high-rise, we'd like a park there. And then a lot of people were like, yeah, we would like a park there. And then before long, the high-rise was canceled and they built a park. And so I think that at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who just aren't going to get on board with defund the police, right?
Sure.
And there's a lot of people who aren't going to take the time to understand what that actually means. They're going to read the headline and they're going to say that sounds ridiculous, and they're going to back off. And so I think that looking at the ridiculous amount of money that's spent on policing, and the fact that police officers are making salaries in excess of $200,000 a year, but then teachers have to go out of their own pocket to buy tissues and pencils for their classroom is absolutely ridiculous. And so I think that one potential way forward is to advocate not just defunding the police, but look at all of the other good things in the community that we can do with that money. And at the end of the day, the stats back this up. The best way to reduce crime isn't to throw more guns at the problem, not to throw more police at the problem. The best way to reduce crime is to support, mental health programs and education programs, because when people have access to resources, they no longer have to resort to crime to make their way through the world. So I think that by focusing on all of the other good things that money could do is one potential way forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Love that. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like as well, like we have to have that message, and we have to like push that message forward and give people that alternative, like you said. But what a stepping stone that I think is super important that people need to focus on more is making sure that we have people in positions of power who can push these things forward.
Yeah, vote.
Vote.
Right.
Like what we're seeing in Minneapolis right now is like the reason they're getting that reform is because they have minorities on the city council who are listening to their community and who understand the demands that people are making, and just kind of like lifting up local community leaders, getting people elected in city councils and local politics is so important and gets brushed over so much, because as much as we push this message, as much as we protest, if we don't have people who understand in positions of power, we can't reform anything. So lifting up minority members and yeah, getting people elected to local office, I think is a huge step in what's next.
Yes, yes, yes. My mother says I agree with Tim with using the money, bro. So yes, see, yes,
Right.
yes, and we have this.
Every city's budget is ridiculously tipped toward like everything goes to the
Yeah.
police, and that seems it's just so unfair.
You
and,
don't need
like,
police
a waste.
tanks in residential areas. There's no reason for you to have enough money for several tanks in a
Right.
small
Yeah,
city.
armored vehicles don't
don't
belong in the police force.
You don't need tear gas. You don't need rubber bullets. This is just ridiculous.
Especially if we're now seeing all the things that's happening as a result of the rubber bullets, especially when one hit that baby and it's just
Right.
totally done. That is just so breaks your heart about that. So let's turn it over to our poli-sci girls up there with that. So talk to us. What's next? What's next, Keira? What's next, Ashley?
Oh, okay. Well, for me, I'm going to continue to pressure my chancellors, my deans at my university. Me and a collection of our students, we're going to continue to try and have them divest from UCPD. That's like our top priority. We're going to try and start small and move it outward because at the end of the day, we don't need as many police as we have, and we don't need them doing the jobs that they've been given. They're not prepared, they're not equipped, they don't know what they're doing, and they show that they don't know what they're doing when they talk about being scared for their lives. I don't know why you're scared in this situation. I thought you should have been prepared for this. Beyond that, I agree with the rest of them. I'm going to continue to push voting. That's something I've been passionate about my whole life. When I turned 18, the most exciting part was the fact that I was going to be able to vote. So I'm going to continue to urge people and be annoying about voting and midterm elections and all little silly stuff.
I love that. Annoy them.
And that's just going to be my own personal advocacy. I'm not letting it go. I'll probably be an old lady talking about it.
That's right. That's right. Keira.
Yeah, so I think that the next steps are, first of all, like Quinlan was saying, all Black lives matter. So having the Black community recognize that it isn't just straight who we choose. It isn't just, straight cis people who matter. It is all Black lives matter. And if we can protect every single Black person within our diaspora, then we cannot protect anybody. And so understanding that, and also moving forward, I think protecting and protesting for equity, because it isn't just about fighting the police. Systemic racism doesn't start and end at police. Systemic racism is in everything that we do. So fighting for educational equity, systematic equity, equity in our jobs, housing, everything, economic equity. And so being able to remove those barriers, and in the places where those barriers are being refused to move, giving added help to people who cannot help themselves in that situation, especially when it comes to education. And also the most important thing to me is voting disenfranchisement. I plan to continue fighting for every Black person's right to vote, regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of any location that they're in, regardless of any rap sheet that they might hold. Every person in the U.S. should be able to vote. And I think that it's just abhorrent the way that people take away especially the Black community's right, and they take away the ease to vote. If you go to a Black community in the South, especially in Georgia, you find 3.5-hour long lines at any given time in the day to go vote. And if you go to an affluent white neighborhood, they are in and out in 3 minutes, paid to vote, paid time that they're on to go vote. And these people have to wait in line till 3 a.m. to get a vote in. And so voting disenfranchisement in the Black community is something that I will continue to do research on, and I will continue to fight for and work for until
Awesome. I love it. I love it. We have a question here that was put out here, and we want to be able to speak some of these things. As around here, young people, and this is my aunt who's in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, in that area. And you have Kansas City, Kansas, literally across the bridge from Kansas City, Missouri. And she's talking about these young people don't vote. How can we get them, and how can we motivate them to take care of that? So any suggestions on the floor? All of you guys, what's your thoughts? Okay, Quinlan, let's start with you. What are your thoughts? How do you get them to vote?
Well, it really has a huge depending on where you are, because the political climate is insanely different depending on where you are in the United States or in the world.
Midwest is so different.
Yeah, now I'm in California. I'm in the other room from those guys. But back in Texas, it was really hard to get people to vote. Like I had to go door to door back when it was like people had to vote for Senate between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, like things like that. You have to get on phones, call over and over, remind everyone, go door to door, be like, hey, it's time to vote. Like people need to, not only do they need to remember when voting is, because it is not communicated well enough, they need to know when it is, how they can do it, how they can access it. Like they need the specifics in order to do it. Otherwise, it's just this vague idea.
Right.
I think getting people to care is one of the biggest things, which you have to show them how it's going to affect their lives. It stinks that a lot of people don't grasp the concepts that don't apply to them. But a lot of the time, you have to know like what change will I see from this? And usually, that's something that can motivate people to be like, oh, this is something I want to actively fight for.
Yes.
That's just my thoughts. I don't know. I
love it. Deji, what do you think, especially with, and I'm going to get to you girls up there, I'm so sorry, especially with young black men, you know, we're just like, well, it doesn't even matter. So whatever, they don't want it. It's not going to change. What do you say to those young black men who don't exercise their right to vote?
Yeah, well, first of all, for those who feel like that, I would just empathize with them and say, I know how that feels. Like,
right.
Feel like, what's the point? Like, why does this even matter? You feel like you're one small fish in a big, huge pond. So I would just tell them, like, look, I feel where you're coming from. I felt the same way. I think what maybe changed my perspective is recognizing that your vote actually does matter. If we're talking on a national level, like, especially if you're in one of these swing states, Michigan, some of these states that in 2016 with a tipping point, you can actually get people you can give them an example to see, like, when you're in some of these swing states, your vote actually really, really does matter. You know, like California, we're pretty blue. We're going to be cool. And then on a local level, I would just get them to connect their reason to vote to something that they're passionate about, or get them to see an issue or a principle or a value that they connect with, and connect that to a policy or a legislation that's coming up in their local election, so that they can see that stuff that they care about or things that they're interested in actually have an influence on if they vote locally, you know? So that's probably how I would try to communicate to young black men, is like, hey, your voice actually does matter, regardless of whatever society has told you about your voice. Your voice matters, and it matters a lot.
Awesome. Come on, my poli-sci girls, real quick. We're going to tune out here. We got about 3 more minutes and we got to get off. I don't want to keep people past 90 minutes. You know how that goes.
Okay. I think firstly, we live in the age of technology. We don't need to be voting the same way we were voting in the 60s. Lines around your church, sitting there for hours, is ridiculous. Like, I feel like that in itself is voter suppression. And I also think that, I don't know how many different people I've spoken to where they're like, my homie, he was in jail and they didn't do this and they didn't do that. I'm like, do you know that the judge is up for re-election? Do you know that the judge is up for re-election? You need to know what positions you have control over. You need to understand that the people who are making decisions about their lives, their friends' lives, are all subject to change and removal if you go ahead and take the time to try and find a candidate that you believe will actually serve you. And so I'll just keep it.
Love that. Keira.
Yeah, I think it's very important to understand. I think people don't understand what they're voting for, and it's common misconception. You know, we vote for the president, we vote for the Senate, we vote for the House. No, we vote for everything. We vote for who's the head of the sheriff's department. We vote for who's the head of the police department. The chief of police is voters. Like, we vote for that. We vote for the DA. Like I said last week, if you're in LA and you are not voting Jackie Lacey out of office, then you are part of the problem. Because Jackie Lacey does nothing for our community. And so you have to be actively voting and understanding what you're voting for and who you're voting for. And on top of that, we have to recognize too, you know, it is hard growing up and seeing people in office that do not represent us. That's hard. And I completely empathize with that. You know, there are not enough Black women and Black men in office. But we still have to vote. We still have to vote even when we're not able to, because the more that we vote, the more that we have the power and use our votes, especially within our age demographic, we have the largest voting power in the U.S.
Yes.
Yes, you guys do.
Go out and vote. White
Exactly.
Republicans, especially white middle-aged
40,
Republicans,
yeah,
they
40.
vote 97% of the time in every single election. They come out in every
Right.
election, they vote every time. And so we sit and we wonder, well, who's upholding these powers of systemic oppression? It's the people that you see every single day walking past you in a grocery store, walking past you in a bank, sitting with you at a football game. They're going out there and upholding systemic oppression because they benefit from it and because they are more likely to vote because they want to continue to benefit from it. So if we want to change where we are and we want to benefit from our own type of system, then we have to go vote for it. So,
Baby. She gonna be able to, well, right. Get on out of here. Tim and Hallie, and then Jason, we're gonna wrap this up. Thoughts on that? What?
I mean, I think just getting as many people to vote as possible is crucial.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
Totally.
and I think it's definitely like the tides are starting to change a little bit. Like when you look at Gen Z, I'm like right on the edge of millennial and Gen Z, and Gen Z is like their entire life has been in a world and knowingly in a system that doesn't work for them, like the recession, like 9/11, their entire existence, they've known that the government isn't working for them. And so you're starting to see so many more politically active young people with school shootings and people like really fighting for their lives. And I really do have hope for the future as Gen Z kind of ages up and as they reach voting age. I think we're going to see even more of a young voter turnout than we have already, as long as we give them the resources so they know what to do, where to go, and like what the issues matter to them and how it affects their lives. I think they're going to show up. So I'm excited to see it.
I am too. Jason, last thoughts for you. Man, I can't thank you enough. I mean, we didn't have to do any work. We just sat back and let them do it all.
And you know, I was sitting here and I was just amazed. And I want to just applaud each one of you because you guys are braver, so braver than my generation was. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing. And so I just want to leave you with two things. Number one is social justice. Always continue to fight for it. So social justice, always fight for it. Number two is let's definitely get people to vote, but I think we have to educate them on the power of their vote. I think you said it about individuals may only know I'm voting for the president or those kind of things, but helping people to understand the power of their vote. So social justice and the power of the vote. And so I applaud you guys. Thank you all for what you all have I was just taking it all in. So continue to go, grow, and do what you have to do for society.
Yes, we want to promote one last thing that Marilyn Daniel is definitely doing another one in Anaheim Hills. For those of you who are in the Orange County area in Los Angeles or Southern California, Anaheim Hills next Saturday, June 20th. So please come out and talk about the next steps. Deji, hopefully you can come out. She's definitely asking everyone on the panel to come out. Listen, Jason, do we need to send you a ticket? Have you come on and hang out with us?
I'm ready.
Yes. That's right. Listen, panel, thank you all so much. I am enriched and I have hope for the future. All of you guys are just amazing. Wow. That's all I can say is wow.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, no, thank you.
Thank you, Marty, for hosting them.
Thank you.
Listen,
Applause for you guys too.
yes, this was absolutely amazing. You guys, and I'm like Hallie, you guys give me hope for our future because my mantra is this: speak up, speak out, and live. That's what we have to do with that. So hold on, guys. Listen, as always, I want to thank you guys for joining us for this exciting edition to Mental Health Matters with Marty. I am Martina Sellers, your mental health hygienist, and always soon to be coming out. You can definitely reach me out soon here on Mental Health Matter Marty .com. I can be reached on Facebook on Mental Health Matters with Marty and on YouTube, Martina's Sellers. Please join me on my weekly podcast, Mental Health Matters with Marty, here on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, as well as iHeartRadio. To stay in touch with everything we are doing, please type I Matter to 31996. Again, that's I Matter to 31996. Again, we want you to speak up, speak out and live. We don't want you to suffer in silence under the stigma of shame, but we have to stop the stigma that's going on again. So again, thank you so much. I cannot thank our panel tonight for helping us out with everything with us. Again, we'll be having another amazing show this coming tomorrow night and this coming Thursday as well. But again, as always, speak up, speak out, and live. And until next time, be blessed.